This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
Featuring former FBI Special Agent and Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, Robin Dreeke.
Osage County undersheriff said Friday that he's going to continue to push for approval of a contract with a television production company that wants to feature the sheriff's office in a new reality series. We can talk more about what the reality series entails. It's basically one that would follow around Sheriff Eddie Virden and Gary Upton, the undersheriff, as they fight crime, if you will. Now, I don't know them well. I've had a good conversation for an hour with Gary the other week. Seemed like a nice enough guy. I think, they genuinely do want to find something here, if there is something with BTK connected. This just the optics I'm cringing at when I'm seeing that, because there's already a lot of question of, is this a little overzealous and people operating on emotion and not so much reality or facts? And then you add, and by the way, we want to have a reality series follow us around, and the CW is ready to air it in January. Thoughts on that?
Tony, I'm right with you. But when you approach it, every instance of life with that open, curious mind and not a confirmation bias mind, you can continually take in data and shift it if needs be. So literally, I am staring at my notes in front of me on BTK and this entire situation, and here are my 3 words I have. Ego seeps in.
Yes.
But I kept reading on, and I then read about how they think that this will actually help recruitment, retention, and people to want to join law enforcement. And I said to myself, fair point. I can't tell you, because of my background in the FBI running the behavioral team, how many people reach out to me asking me, how do I get to do this? What do I need to do? So things like this that are sexy BTK kind of investigations that are in the highlight, that are in the news, that are solved, but there's unsolved elements of it. That's a great recruitment post. It really is. So I see their point. I'd be curious as to, because it's a dichotomy. It's about everything. And you've talked about this with me before too. Everything's a dichotomy and a balance. I think if they can put in place by checks and balances, a way to balance the dichotomy between ego and serving of them and others and serving of the community and law enforcement, and maintaining that balance, using this as a resource and tool in which to do that, so it doesn't hinder the investigation, doesn't resurface pain of the families involved with hope that gets dashed because it's just a publicity stunt. But I think if there's oversight, I think if there's checks and balances, I think if the intent remains pure of heart, and they can maintain that dichotomy, it can be a beneficial thing for everyone involved. But it's as we're seeing just in this discussion, it is a very challenging dichotomy to maintain. All dichotomies and balances are, but when something is this sensitive, it's even more important to maintain that balance, because it can, even one little tip one way or the other can really throw it askew.
And I can see a lot of the positives there. It just feels like this is a very tight wire to be walking. So I guess I would say to them is be very careful with how you are handling anything going forward on this, because we're dealing with people's lives here. BTK's crimes took place 20, 30, 40 years ago. So they do feel historical to many people, but they're not to mom and dad or brother or sister who lost their loved one. And yes, it garners a lot of attention. Anytime this case is brought up with a character like BTK, people are going to look and go, what's going on over there now? And if you are someone that has power to look into some of these things deeper, or to kind of raise the veil a little bit, people are going to be excited. It's just, we got to be really careful on what is true hope for something and what is, well, this looks really good, because as of right now, all we have is BTK's writings. We don't really have any physical evidence that connects the two. We have creepy stuff that looks really scary when you hold it up on television with gloves, like Sheriff Eddie Virden did with handling that evidence with Ashley the other night. But beyond that, hopefully, I know they're digging. They're trying to get more evidence from Wichita to take a look at. and compare it to pictures, and I applaud them for that. I hope they find something if there is something to be found. But it's a tightrope.
Yeah, and I think they have a lot of control about the optics on this in the sense of the behaviors of trust that people need to display in order to inspire trust when people are viewing you are pretty simple and easy. One, you have to have open, honest communication. Mm-hmm. You have to be transparent with everything that others need to be transparent about so they can trust that you're doing things appropriately. Mm-hmm. You need to have vulnerabilities where you can be clear and concise on the things that you've fallen short on and be able to own it. And then that's it. When you do those things, and then you use the keys of communication, as I like to say, you talk in terms of the priorities of others instead of your own priorities. You talk in terms of empowering people with choices instead of trying to force people what to do. And you're ultimately curious about moving forward with whatever it is you're trying to do. And you're open and curious about every situation. You're open to other opinions coming in and not promoting your own agenda. If you can do all those things, which requires a massive amount of ego suspension in which to do it, because you have to serve the public trust and not serve yourself. If you can do all those things, this can be very effective, and it can create a great personal and organizational brand, but it's very challenging to do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, it would be refreshing. It would be nice to see a program. I think it would be kind of intriguing. I don't know how exciting things in Osage County are when BTK comes up in the topic, but it would be good to see the law enforcement in a good light, in a positive light. We need more of that when we have the good ones out there that can be shown that way. But another part of the optics on this is Eddie Virden is up for re-election. He's the sheriff, and the DA, who the other day said, we don't have enough on this yet, and was very explicit about that. He is supporting the other candidate, the one that's trying to replace Sheriff Eddie Virden. So you already have the optics on this where the DA, who doesn't agree with Eddie, is supporting the other sheriff. Eddie Virden's trying to get a reality show going here with Gary Upton, which would, the publicity would certainly help a campaign, should they be shown in a good light. So it's just, I don't know, it's another layer to this that I cringe at, but I still say, you got the gumption to keep going at this, and if you got something, keep going, but gosh, don't use this for the wrong reason, because otherwise it's just another example where people are going to cite it of some sort of corrupt or somebody doing something for the wrong reasons for their own self-benefit.
I agree. The optics and the timing are really bad. I'm a proponent of, well, why don't you record it all now and don't release anything until after the election?
Yeah, that would make more sense, just to say, hey, this has nothing to do with that. We just want to show this, but we'll see how that plays out.
You're consuming the Hidden Killers podcast.
Want more? Start binging on all of our true crime podcasts right now through Apple Podcasts and get an ad-free experience when you sign up to be a True Crime Today Premium Plus member exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast dropping soon.
Press subscribe now.